Live. What's up, everybody? Hello, hello. Whoever watches
So I've
this,
got my
I
essay
hope you
ready,
enjoy it.
and
Um, Hold on, let me just put something up side. All right, all right, all right. Recording is going on. The volume's working. So today, I'm gonna be analyzing this book that I've been reading. Now, I'm kind of a dumbass. I'm not gonna lie, but this book is all about self-improvement. It's called, let's see, Meditations, and it was written by Marcus Aurelius, who was the Roman emperor, probably the most powerful man of his time. Um, it's Aurelius. I don't remember what time period he ruled from. So from emperor from 161 to 180, and he was a big supporter of Stoicism, and part of this book, or a whole lot of this book, kind of goes through some of the ideas of Stoicism and what they represent. And I've kind of derived my name from that too, Zeno Solavigant. I don't even know how to pronounce my own name, but Zeno, I think, was the founder of Zeno of Belief. There it is. He was kind of the founder of Stoicism, um, pre-Socratic. I don't know why they call all philosophers before Socrates pre-Socratic, but it's kind of a blow to them. But at the same time, I mean, Socrates was kind of a big deal. Um, anyways, uh, he was, I hope he was, a big part of Stoicism. Yeah, he was the founder of the Stoic school of philosophy, and he taught in Athens. Uh, but in any case, I was kind of gonna just analyze this book, kind of go through some of the highlighted portions of it. I don't know if I'm allowed to kind of read the whole book, but I'm just gonna go through some of the pointers that I found to be interesting. Um, and I'm hoping you guys will find it to be the same, if anybody even watches this shit. Let's see. So the first thing that I got here, I'm just gonna read it out loud, and then I'm gonna go ahead and analyze it after that. Um, and it says, "From Apollonius, I learned freedom of will and undeviating steadiness of purpose, and to look to nothing else, not even for a moment, except to reason, and to be always the same in sharp pains, on the occasion of the loss of a child, and in long illness, and to see clearly in a living example that the same man can be both most resolute and yielding, and not peevish in giving his instructions." And peevish uh, basically just means, that the states here, is easily irritated, um, which, I kind of do that a lot, honestly, and it's something that I'm trying to work on. Uh, when you talk to the same people for a long time, you kind of get in a habit of, just knowing what they're gonna say, and, when people become predictable, it kind of becomes irritating, because it's the same old conversations over and over. Anyways, I'm gonna continue on with the quote. Uh, so let me go on. In sharp pains, occasional lost child, and long illnesses, and to see clearly in a living example that the same man can be both most resolute in yielding and not peevish in giving his instructions, and to have had before my eyes a man who clearly considered his experience and his skill in expounding philosophical principles as the smallest of merits. And from him I learned how to receive from friends what are esteemed favors without being either humbled by them or letting them pass unnoticed. Now, this honestly is probably one of the hardest things to do. Like, for example, on birthdays or holidays, when somebody's gifting you something, I get really awkward. Um, I honestly don't know how to thank them, or how to be humble about it. And it's still something that I'm working on, and it's really easy to write this down, um, without you know kind of fully, I don't even know how to put it. It's just it's kind of this modern day thing where people are just so self conscious and so anxious that they don't even want to say anything out of their mouth because they're so afraid that they might, come off as being, either too braggy or going overly humble where it seems fake. So it's a big problem, and I know that, Marcus Aurelius, he delves deeper into this and kind of gives lessons of like what type of life you should lead and how this could help you, just be a more humble person and come off as a more natural and nice person instead of somebody who's trying to put up an act. You know, this generation or the society that we live in is almost everybody's two-faced. You can look at it from any perspective. You work in retail, for example, right? And you're dealing with customers, you're probably being nicer than you usually are, or you're putting up a facade or an act. Even when a customer is an asshole, you got to be nice to him because that's part of your job. And then you go home, you're probably complaining about that douchebag customer. I'm saying this because I've had this happen to me in the past, and I think everybody goes through that. Whoever works in retail, and that's just part of it. Um, Apollonius, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but he was a Greek mathematician. Uh, and okay, so I actually didn't really read about him before this. Um, but let's see, he examined and redefined the various conic sections and was the first to use the term ellipse, parabola. Man, this is a guy who made math hard. No, I'm just kidding. It's a huge achievement. Um, but for seventh grade me, this guy was an asshole. Let's see. So the next I have here quoted, but I'm gonna read the entire paragraph so this quote makes sense, and I'm gonna do this often when I'm moving through it. So here's from Maximus: I learned self-government and not to be led aside by anything, and cheerfulness in all circumstances, as well as an illness and a just admixture in the moral character of sweetness and dignity, and to do what was set before me without complaining. I observed that everybody believed that he thought as he spoke, and that in all that he did, he never had any bad intention. He never showed amazement and surprise, and was never in a hurry, and never put off doing a thing, nor was perplexed nor dejected. Nor did he ever laugh to disguise his vexation, nor, on the other hand, was he ever passionate or suspicious. He was accustomed to do acts of uh, beneficence. I'll go into that later. And was ready to forgive, and was free from all falsehood. And he presented the appearance of a man who could not be diverted from right rather than of a man who had been improved. I observed, too, that no man could ever think that he was despised by Maximus, or even venture to think himself of a better man. He had also the art of being humorous in an agreeable way. I don't even know how disrespectful this is, but Marcus is basically writing Maximus, but for good reason. He's known in history for a lot of valid points. I mean, to me, when I think of Maximus, me being the idiot, I just straight up think of The Gladiator, the movie from what was it, 2000, 2001. Great movie. Um, but the reason why I highlighted this, he presented the appearance of a man who could not be diverted from right rather than of a man who had been improved. It's kind of huge for me because, I see myself as improving based off of what others have shown me rather than, you know, kind of being a man who already knows what he wants. And that's kind of one of like my shortcomings because I don't really know what I want. Even with streaming, I'm not really sure what I want, but I'm glad I'm doing it because I would regret it later on in life if I never kind of delved into this. And that's kind of the main thing, you just gotta keep doing what you think is right until you hit that click, and then you know that yeah, this is it. So that's what I'm doing too. I'm experimenting, but this was huge for me because this is something that I aspire to uh, be sure, in my choices, in what I do, in what I believe. But right now, it's all up in the air for me, and that's kind of the struggle of it, I guess. But that's kind of what makes it fun too, because if I already knew what I wanted, life would be kind of boring. Uh, but yeah, let's go deeper into some of the other things he said. I'm just gonna skim over this and then kind of nitpick. There was this one word that I didn't know the definition of. Let me see where I can find it. Disguised as vexation, the state of being annoyed, frustrated, or worried. So yeah, going back to the last quote, it's kind of the same thing, you know, like being patient with people, because some people, man, they're annoying as hell, and there's no way of going around that. Whether it's your roommate, your coworker, or even your friend, 'cause people change with time. And he has another quote that I'll discuss later on about that. And it's either you change with them and adapt to what they do, or you leave them and move on. And it's not a one or two thing. There's many things that go into this. There's many paths you could take, but just to simplify it, uh, you know, like it's very important to kind of disguise your frustration even when you're frustrated. But at the same time, it's important to stand up for yourself when you know that whatever somebody is doing is wrong. Uh, but yeah, let's see what else he has. This is a pretty hefty paragraph. Honestly, it's a pretty hefty book, and that's why I like it. I think everybody should read this at least once. There's a whole bunch of translations for this. I believe this is the Gregory Hayes translation. If you're interested in this certain one, um, but yeah. So I learned self-government and not to be led aside by anything, and cheerfulness in all circumstances. This is another big thing. How can you be cheerful when you're surrounded by sadness? Because some people have that. It's just the environment. Uh, I was watching this video. I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but the guy basically said that if anything goes wrong, blame yourself instead of blaming others, because it makes it easier to grow out of that. Um, and even when you're blaming yourself, you could be cheerful about it because now you have something that you could work towards, and that's honestly pretty huge. I've had times where I've just been completely lost and had no idea what I wanted to do. I'm just stuck in purgatory, basically. And honestly, I'm kind of going through that phase right now, but that's all right because I know that I'm willing to try new things, and that kind of just makes me keep going. Uh, all right, moving on. Already lost. Could not be reported. Let's go back a little bit. Yeah, it's the long ass paragraph. All right, so in this paragraph, he's talking about his dad, his father, and basically what he learned from him. But I'm just going to kind of skip forward to where I highlighted, um, and then just go from there. Uh, there was in him nothing harsh nor implacable. Great, this helps me a lot. Implacable. Now we search up implacable instead. Easily calmed, gentle, and forgiving. Okay, so he was unable to be easily calmed. Um, there was in him nothing harsh nor implacable, nor violent, nor, as one may say, anything carried to the sweating point. But he examined all things severally, as if he had abundance of time, and without confusion, in an orderly way, vigorously and consistently. And that might be applied to him, which is recorded of Socrates, that he was able both to abstain from and to enjoy those things which many are too weak to abstain from and cannot enjoy without excess. But to be strong enough both to bear the one and to be sober in the other is the mark of a man who has a perfect and invincible soul, such as he showed in the illness of Maximus. Excuse me. Um, this basically says that he enjoyed without enjoying too much. Like you're eating, but you don't overeat, and he abstained from basically means that he restricted himself. So he basically was keeping a good balance, and And that's a good lesson for life. Everything is good in moderation, and if you do overdo it, even the best of things, like it's gonna be bad for you. Um, and that's just how it goes. And I'm gonna move on to the next paragraph because I have something highlighted here as well. To the gods I'm indebted for having good grandfathers, good parents, a good sister, good teachers, good associates, good kinsmen, and friends, nearly everything good. Further, I owe to the gods that I was not hurried into any offense against any of them. Now, this is huge because he accepts that if pushed further, like he could have done or said something that he would regret, and that's a mark of a great man who's willing to accept that. Though I had a disposition which, if opportunity had offered, might have led me to do something of this kind. Basically, what I just said earlier. But through their fair favor, there never was such a concurrence of circumstances that has put me to the trial. And then he just goes about basically what he thinks. To get a better understanding of this book, this is kind of he's writing this down for himself, um, and he's basically telling himself what he believes, and when you put it in writing, like you solidify that, and that's basically what he's doing. He's thanking what he believes to think, just so he's sure of his choices, if that makes any sense. Um, and I think like having a diary like this is pretty neat, where you could just put your thoughts down, come back to them, analyze them, and see if you have a difference of opinion now, and then write that down too, and repeat the process in the future. See how you grow and how you mature. Anyways, might have led me to do something of this kind. Okay, on to the next one. Now this is book two. Basically, I don't know if he put it in chapters like this or if somebody later on who found his diary did this, but this book I believe was written, or his diary, he had been writing in it from the span of 20 years. So there are thoughts that are repeating, and there are some things that are just uh, maybe chapter specific. I honestly don't know, but it's great lessons from a real person and his real thoughts. And it's honestly pretty amazing how relatable it is, even now, especially now. I feel like, but anyways, here's basically the first highlight on this page. Begin the morning by saying to thyself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. All these things happen to them by reason of their ignorance of what is good and evil. But I, who have seen the nature of the good, that it is beautiful, and of the bad, that it is ugly, and the nature of him who does wrong, that it is akin to me, not only of the same blood or seed, but that it participates in the same intelligence and the same portion of the divinity, yada yada yada. He's basically saying that, um, you know, wake up in the morning with the expectation uh, of basically not having any expectations. You know, um, he's saying that you're gonna meet ungrateful people. You're gonna meet arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial people who will try to take advantage of you, and that is to be expected because either people are looking to do you wrong or they're just as lost as you, and somebody taught them that this is the way to get through life. And at least that's my interpretation of it. He probably had a different interpretation, but this is how I see it. You meet people, and honestly, whatever somebody says, take it with a grain of salt, and formulate your own opinions. That's just a way to go about it. Um, let's see. All right, moving on to the next highlight. Every moment think steadily as a Roman and a man, to do what thou hast in hand, with perfect and simple dignity, a feeling of affection and freedom and justice, and to give thyself relief from all other thoughts. And thou wilt give thyself relief, if thou does does every act of thy life as if it were the last, laying aside all carelessness and passionate aversion from the commands of reason, and all hypocrisy and self-love, and discontent with the portion which has been given to thee. Um, he's basically just saying appreciate what you have, um, and that's the only way to find relief. If you keep on desiring for the next thing, then your desires will never end. Because the way things work is that when people do something once, they're bound to do it again, and then again, and then again. Um, and it's kind of important to just either not let yourself fall into that cycle or break out of it. Um, and that's just how things go. On to the next paragraph. Do wrong to thyself, my soul, but thou wilt no longer have the opportunity of honoring thyself. Every man's life is sufficient, but thine is nearly finished. Thy soul reverences not itself, but places thy felicity in the souls of others. Big ass words in this one. Reverences. Deep respect for someone or something. Rituals showed honor and reverence. Okay. Life of felicity. Intense happiness, domestic felicity, the ability to find appropriate expression for the souls of others. Thy soul reverences not itself, but places thy felicity in the souls of others. He's basically saying that people are always, you know, appreciating what others have, and they desire to have what others have, and you know, that's basically envy. Uh, Envy is it's a downward spiral. The more you envy others, the less you respect yourself, because you're basically telling yourself what you have is not sufficient enough to lead a happy life, and you need to have what others have in order to lead that. And I'll be honest, I kind of fall into that cycle too. I think it's human nature, to seek what others have, uh, and in its own respect, I think it's kind of important too. Uh, like you wouldn't want to become a bum, but bum is kind of a strong word because it's all kind of on the perception of what others think. If you think you could do yourself good by following the examples of others, why not? But at the same time, it's really important not to cling to somebody else's uh, basically what others have, you know. Uh, and just because it kind of halts your life, you stop, you're in purgatory because you're just kind of envying and getting jealous over other people's uh obsessions or other people's possessions is the right word, possessions, and you kind of lose yourself because you start desiring what they desire instead of what you really need. And then I can't really give you the answer right now because I'm not old enough, but I'm guessing once you're old enough and you look back and you're like, ah, shit, I messed up. I was really following somebody else's goal instead of mine. And, that kind of delves deep into what capitalism is. You work for a company, you work for somebody else's goal, and you keep on working it until you retire, basically. And I don't think that's just the right way of going about it. Like, you really have to kind of dive deep and look inside you and see what you really want to do instead of people telling you what you need to do, because nothing is a necessity until it becomes one. Like, my goal is a necessity to me, but I don't really know what my goal is, so I really don't have any necessity right now apart from staying alive. uh but yeah, it's just me rambling on. I don't even know if it makes any sense, but I hope somebody watches this and like, ah, yeah, that's the one, like the click. All right. Do the things external which fall upon thee distract thee. He's basically saying things outside of your world, outside of your nature, distract you. Give thyself time to learn something new and good, and cease to be whirled around. So it's basically what I'm doing. I'm learning how to stream, and I'm kind of trying to stop the cycle of just going in circles of the life that's been set out for me. Wake up, go to work, come home, chat with friends, go to sleep, repeat the cycle until weekends come. Then you do something on the weekends, uh, and you probably do the same thing next weekend because you don't guide yourself, you let others guide you, and this is kind of the downward spiral that I was talking about. The more you let others control you, the less, you know, the more you will allow them to control you over time, and the less you'll believe in what you really want. And eventually you'll come to a point where you won't even know what you want. And I've been to that point. I keep telling myself I'm a blank canvas. Well, I'll remain a blank canvas unless I actually go out of my comfort zone and try something new. But yeah, on to the next quote. This thou must always bear in mind. What is the nature of the whole? And what is my nature? And how this is related to that? And what kind of a part it is of who, excuse me, of what kind of a whole? And that there is no one who hinders thee from always doing and saying the things which are according to the nature of which thou art a part. He's basically saying, like, people I keep on saying he's basically saying, but this is my interpretation of what he's saying, my analysis. I have no clue what he's thinking, but this is what I'm thinking about what he's written. Um, and in my opinion, from my analysis, he's saying that, uh, like, you're part of a society, you're doing the tasks that the society that you live in has given you. You're part of a community. You're trying to fit into the community. But is that really what you want? Is that in your nature? And if it's not, then you have to look outwards into something else where you belong. Uh, but yeah, on to the next. Well, I actually didn't finish this. Theophrastus. They had some pretty dank names like that. Greek philosopher and scientist, a student and successor of Aristotle. The most influential of his works was Characters, a collection of sketches. Uh, Actually, I want to look at this. Theophrastus. Ancient take on bad behavior. That's interesting. It's crazy to see how, even back then, like, they analyze like this. Probably more back then than now. Like, the philosophers of that time, they were something else. And I'm not discrediting what we have now. We have the technology to do better and know better, but it's just amazing to see what they could do back then with the knowledge they had, with the limited knowledge they had. Um, Anyways, Theophrastus, in his comparison of bad acts, such a comparison as one would make in accordance with the common notions of mankind, says, like a true philosopher, that the offense which are committed through desire are more blamable than those which are committed through anger. And he's gonna kind of delve into that for a second. I'll be right back. I'm gonna get some water. Alright. I know he's gonna delve a little bit deeper into this in the next few sentences, but I kind of want to look at this for a second. The offenses which are committed through desire are more blamable than those which are committed through anger. People don't really think about that, do they? Like, an offense is an offense. Nobody's really like, oh, it was through anger or it was through desire, but or at least I don't look at it like that. So it kind of opened my eyes a little bit when I first read this. But he's gonna discuss this a little bit, and then we'll talk about that after this. So, following sentence he wrote: "For he who is excited by anger seems to turn away from reason, with a certain pain and unconscious contraction, but he who offends through desire, being overpowered by pleasure, seems to be in a manner more intemperate and more womanish in his offenses." Um, we're gonna we're gonna ignore this part. But he's basically saying that when you're angry, you kind of lose your mind. You don't really know what you're doing. You just do it. But once you do it through desire, you're basically seeking pleasure from your offense, and it's agreeable. It's a much worse offense when you do it through desire, because you're conscious. You know what you're doing. You're doing it for pleasure. Uh, when you're angry, you're not really thinking, and there's truth in that. Um, I could go on and read the entire thing, but I just kind of want to focus on the quotes that I have here. And maybe later on, even if I'm allowed to, the whole copyright bullshit, I don't know if I can. Maybe in a later stream, I'll read uh, the book chapter by chapter. Um, Anyways, the next quote. These two things then thou must bear in mind. The one, that all things from eternity are of like forms and come around in a circle, and that it makes no difference whether a man shall see the same things during 100 years or 200, or in an infinite time. And the second, that the longest liver and he who will die soonest lose just the same, for the present is the only thing of which a man can be deprived. If it is true that this is the only thing which he has, and that a man cannot lose a thing if he has it not, remember that all is opinion, for what was said by the cynic Monimus is manifest, and manifest too is the use of what was said. If a man receives what may be got out of it as far as it is true, if a man receives what may be got out of it as far as it is true, man, that's a tongue twister. I just found this point really interesting. The longest liver and he who will die soonest lose just the same, for the present is the only thing of which a man can be deprived. That's that's pretty deep. He's basically saying your past doesn't matter, your future doesn't matter, it's all about the present. And in a sense, it's true. There's too many people who whine about the past, the regrets they have, and there's too many people who dream of the future, and many lose sight of the present. What they're doing in the present is going to shape their future. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. And that's pretty neat. Okay, moving on. The soul of man does violence to itself. First of all, when it becomes an abscess, swollen area within body tissue containing an accumulation. When it becomes an abscess and as it were a tumor on the universe, so far as it can. For to be vexed at anything which happens is a separation of ourselves from nature, in some part of which the natures of all other things are contained. Tumor on the universe. Damn, that's a pretty good insult. Somebody's really messing with you. Like, you're a tumor on the universe. Your existence. Jeez. For to be vexed at anything which happens is a separation of ourselves from nature. Yeah, frustration, anger, being annoyed. It's all things where what's gonna happen is gonna happen. No point in being frustrated or angry about it. And I think this is a whole Zen mentality, Zen, Zeno. Um, where when things are out of your control, they're out of your control. Why are you going against your nature by being angry at them and kind of whining about it? The key is just to move on. And yeah, and in some part, I'm gonna keep going on with the quote. There's more highlights here. In some part of which the natures of all other things are contained. In the next place, the soul does violence to itself when it turns away from any man or even moves towards him with the intention of injuring, such as are the souls of those who are angry. Basically, what I just said up here. In the third place, the soul does violence to itself when it is overpowered by pleasure or by pain. Yeah, desire or anger, what he was talking about up here. Fourthly, when it plays a part and does or say anything insincerely and untruly. Yeah, this is a whole two-faced thing that I mentioned earlier with the current society kind of expecting that customer service, being nice to people, even when they're wrong. Well, I've been working on that uh, for a good amount of time now, and I'm trying to fix that. Because I sometimes find myself saying things that I don't really believe in. It's really something that others have told me, and it sounded nice to me, and that's why I started, kind of following their thought. But yeah, it's very important. I think it's the most important thing, uh, followed by It's coming next. Fifthly, when it allows any act of its own and any movement to be without a name and does anything thoughtlessly and without considering what it is. I have a little note here as well, but I'm kind of gonna go into this. Like, why would you want to waste your life doing things that will have no meaning either in the present or in the long run? Why not, kind of put your focus on something that will not only help you but will help a lot of other people, like analyzing this book, which is helping me and hopefully will help others too. But only time will tell. But this is a note I wrote, and I'm just gonna read it through and move on afterwards. This is the biggest crime against your soul. Not only do you waste time aimlessly doing tasks without any expectation to complete them, but you also build a habit of carelessness which follows you for the rest of your life, if not acknowledged and worked upon. Living a life without meaning is a short life. It's very important to find one's roots and also make sure that those roots grow without neglect and any wasted time. It's basically like find what you think is right and follow through with it. Dedicate your time to what you think is right. Don't just tell yourself, "Yeah, I'm doing the right thing," and then not do it again. Um, so yeah, this is a very huge thing that many people kind of fall into. You're going to college for a degree that you don't really want. Your parents told you to get that degree, or you're doing a job that you don't really want to do, but it pays decent, so you keep doing it without really thinking. It's a repetitive job. You may not be happy with it, but you keep doing it because you feel like there's no other options. There's always options. It's just how much are you willing to sacrifice. All right. Before I read this, I'm gonna have another drink. Alright. Labor not unwillingly, nor without regard to the common interest, nor without due consideration, nor with distraction, nor let studied ornament set off thy thoughts, and be not either a man of many words, or busy about too many things. And further, let the deity which is in thee be the guardian of a living being, manly and of ripe age, and engaged in matter political, and a Roman, and a ruler, who has taken his post like a man waiting for the signal which summons him from life, and ready to go, having need neither of oath nor of any man's testimony. Be cheerful also, and seek not external help, nor the tranquillity which others give. A man then must stand erect, not be kept erect by others. Now, this paragraph kind of felt like propaganda, but this last line really got to me. Uh, a man then must stand erect, not be kept erect by others. I think this is huge, um, because many people they try to find a role model and do exactly as they do, or try to be like them, and it's not a bad thing. But like we're individuals and we're meant to find individuality within ourselves instead of you know like following somebody else's you know goals or uniqueness, like I was talking about earlier. And I think this is kind of like a lesson of trying to find what is right for you and what you truly want to do. But yeah, this is a line that I'm gonna remember for a long time. A man then must stand erect, not be kept erect by others. It's pretty self-explanatory in my opinion, but I still wanted to kind of go into it. Um, moving on. That which rules within, when it is according to nature, is so effective with respect to the events which happen that it always easily adapts itself to that which is and is presented to it. For it requires no definite material, but it moves towards its purpose under certain conditions, however, and it makes a material for itself out of what out of that which opposes it. As fire lays hold of what falls into it, by which a small light would have been extinguished, but when the fire is strong it soon appropriates to itself the matter which is heaped on it, and consumes it, and rises higher by means of this very material. I like this analogy. It basically, hold on, let me actually see what the note says. Yeah, it basically summarizes it. This analogy basically says that if your trust towards yourself is strong, you will consume all the hate and negativity and grow a better person from it. However, if you lack self confidence and are easily shattered by other people's opinions, you will be left cuddled into a corner with no baseline to grow from, nor any motivation to do so. You allowed others to take away your potential and have taken in hate without any intention to direct it towards something good. Um, but yeah, that basically summarizes it pretty well. You know, like people are gonna hate on you when you're trying something new, and it's kind of just human nature, I guess. Like no matter what you do, there's gonna be haters, and that's just part of it. All right. Yep. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's see. I'm just gonna skip right to this quote because it's a pretty chunky one. But perhaps the desire of the thing called fame will torment thee. See how soon everything is forgotten, and look at the chaos of infinite time on each side of the present, and the emptiness of applause, and the changeableness and want of judgment in those who pretend to give praise, and the narrowness of the space within which it is circumscribed. And be quiet at last. For the whole earth is a point, and how small a nook in it is this thy dwelling, and how few are there in it, and what kind of people are they who will praise thee? He's basically saying, why do you want to be famous? Why do you want to be praised? You're going to be forgotten eventually, and those who praise you are going to be forgotten eventually. And not only that, you're going to die eventually, and those who praise you are going to die eventually. And eventually, the praise is gone. It's worthless. Um, so I think it's cool if you want to chase that, if that's your goal, but at the same time, like think of really why you want that, you know, um, and really try to get to the reason of it. Do you like people cheering for you? I'm sure everybody does, honestly, but like I bet people who get cheered on every day just see it as nothing. But yeah, it's different. Not used to talking this much. Really gives me dry throat. All right, this is gonna be the last one. I'm already tired as hell. I'm not used to streaming, but I think this is a good start. Um, the universe is transformation. Life is opinion, and I left a link in here to a pretty good analogy. And I'm kind of gonna go through that. Or before I actually do that, I'm gonna read the entire paragraph so it makes sense. This then remains: remember to retire into this little territory of thy own, and above all, do not distract or strain thyself, but be free, and look at things as a man, as a human being, as a citizen, as a mortal. But among the things readiest to thy hand to which thou shalt turn, let there be these, which are two. One is that things do not touch the soul, for they are external and remain immovable. But our perturbations come only from the opinion which is within. Damn, there's no definition for that. Anyways, the others, the other is that all these things which thou seest change immediately and will no longer be, and constantly bear in mind how many of these changes thou hast already witnessed. Basically, the universe is always changing, and because of these changes, you formulate opinions. Life is an opinion. But there's a deeper analogy that I'm going to touch into. It's surprisingly on Quora, where the most insane shit is, but it's pretty neat. So he basically just goes through what I just read, and then uh, he says, "Here we see that this last sentence, life is opinion, is a summary of what has been said earlier. One is that our perturbations come only from the opinion which is within. This is life is opinion. Uh, is basically look into your own nature and formulate an opinion. Perturbations, see what it means. Anxiety, mental uneasiness. Your perturbations come from within. Okay, it's not for opinions. It's about your uneasiness or anxiety of the changing world around you. And they are all they don't exist. They're in your head basically, and it's kind of hard to grasp around that idea because sometimes I suffer from anxiety too, and we all deal with uneasy social situations, especially when we're in a digital age. But that's just the way it is. Anyways, the other is that these things which thou seest change immediately and will no longer be. This is the universe's transformation. So life in opinion is referring to the concept that external things are not good or bad, but that we merely judge them to be so. The implication uh, is that because we perceive things as good or bad due to our own judgment, it is within our power to alter our judgment and cease to see externals as good or bad. Thus, it is within our power not to be troubled by externals. Yeah, honestly, we do have a pretty binary mindset. This is good and this is bad. Um, and honestly, think things can be more complicated than that, but it's really up to us how we perceive things. If a bad thing happens, maybe it's an opportunity to grow rather than like your downfall. Uh, but it's really just about how you see things and how you're willing to grow from them or go to purgatory with them. I'm using purgatory a lot because it's, in my opinion, it's the best way to put it. Um, anyways, I'm tired as hell. I'm sick, and I'm kind of done with streaming for today. But it was nice. Whoever watches this later on, because I will archive it and maybe put it on YouTube. I hope you learned something from it, because reading this book, I've definitely learned something from it. Peace out.